Hello everybody, and this is Tremembé part 3, and this time we are going to discuss male unit within Tremembé prison. And basically, last time we stopped on the story of the main character Suzanne and her crime that she basically organized. She planned an attempt on her parents, but she didn't commit it. Basically, the one who did that was Daniel Cravinius and his brother Christian Carvinius. So basically, two brothers killed Suzanne's parents, and she basically supposed to be not locked up in a prison because she didn't do like the final part of this crime. But anyway, she was locked up, and in previous stream we already talked about how she managed to survive Tremembé. And this time we are going to discuss her ex and his brother's life in Tremembé male unit. And to understand more the extent of the danger they face in this prison and the consequences of this relationship, even though she is held in another female unit, which is separated from Danielle, but he is still basically seeing her everywhere. And he's just really fixated on Suzanne. Once she arrived to female unit of Tremembé Complex, this news basically got into his head, and he is so desperately trying to forget about Suzanne. But it's not so easy for Danielle because his life basically fucked up because of the connection with Suzanne, and she was the one who planned this crime, but it led to Danielle and his basically brother got locked up for 30 years, something like this. And basically his brother is trying kind of cheer him up because he's kind of, trying to tell him that you need to do something in this prison. If you work, for example, you basically reducing your sentence. You shorten your time in this prison by working. And let's talk about a little bit more about prison itself. So basically, Tremembé, as you already know, the Tremembé Penitentiary Complex in Brazil is a large prison facility that houses both male and female inmates, but they are held in separate, distinct units within the complex. And we are right now focusing on the Penitentiary 2, which is male unit. And basically, while both genders are present within the overall complex, they are segregated into different prisons and do not interact or share the same physical living spaces. The Tremembé Penitentiary Complex has separate facilities for men and women, meaning it is not for both genders in the same unit. There is a male prison penitentiary too, Dr. José Augusto Cesar Salgado, or P2, which houses high-profile male inmates. Despite And basically, despite legal resolution, it's very common for transgender women in Brazil to be placed in male units, which is like in this TV show shown perfectly, because the arrival of this character Luca just demonstrates how, despite that legal resolution, it is very common for transgender women to be placed in male units. So he was basically, Luca, he was placed in this unit, and he basically faced like immediately the danger of being held with other men, even though he is not explicitly like confirming his identity, his gender identity, but it is obvious that another, for example, transgender character who is just, this woman, basically, Gal, her name Gal, she is held in a male unit, basically, and so she is just trying to survive within this male unit, even though, like, in Brazil, it's officially, there is that legal resolution, but despite that, basically, she was put in this male unit. So this is the evidence that basically the problem is still there. And anyway, I just, was really surprised that within this male prison, like, it feels more of a friendly attitude towards, for example, transgender woman, or, for example, the arrival of Luca, who just literally just arrived wearing high heels. And basically, he was kind of forced into, he was forced basically into literally just buying a locker for himself, because all the belongings basically need to be held in a locker. And to get that locker, basically, he had to basically literally just buy it, because everybody just doing something, nobody doing anything for free in this prison, basically. And he immediately just realized what type of place this is. And since this place is considered for famous people, for high profile criminals, there is still that, the same, I would say, system that if you just, a newcomer, if you just arrived, you will face those basically problems anyway, even in this type of prison. But this prison mostly basically represents like different activities within male prison of Tremembé, and how they basically live and what they basically trying to what they basically trying to, how they trying to tell their stories, their crimes, and how they basically, still trying basically to tell their sides of their stories, because everybody just thinks that he's innocent, of course. And the most focus of this male unit is on the relationship between two brothers, Gravinius, Daniel and Christian Carvinius. But apart of them, basically, we have another interesting characters like Gal, for example, a transgender woman who is basically, as I told you before, she is participating in all type of activities like sport, and she is basically doing whatever it takes to survive in male prison, and she's basically doing some type of drink like for parties when they want to just hang out. She's serving some drink called Pruno. So she's basically mixing all available, like, I don't know, mixtures, all available liquids or whatever, like alcohol, and she's like in charge of all the fun within this prison, because this party, for example, this party was due to one of the inmates basically got accepted to a college, and they were basically celebrating this news. And during basically this party, Christian Carvinius and Luca, new arrived prisoner, they basically got to know each other, and they kind of hit it off immediately, because Luca basically recognized in Christian the perfect man, I would say, at least in a prison like this. He was the only one who basically was ready to help him to find the locker, and for nothing. He didn't ask anything in return, which is not common for this place, because everybody's just wanting something. Everybody just asking for something. Everybody just trying to get something in return, but he didn't ask anything. And within this basically prison, any like event, any activity, it's mostly like it's like a huge community, and all the inmates basically gathering, and every time basically it looks more like of a high school parties or something, like outdoors, like the events that that usually just people actually just attend. So it's not even looking like inside of a prison. It's more like of a literally just outdoors, like normal party, And this is why basically this prison considered to be for high profile people, public figures, famous people, and others. And basically in this prison, every Sunday, on Sundays, allowed something like visits, and any basically relative can visit inmate, your husband or brother. And basically Daniel got this woman who recognized him because of the news and all the noise about Daniel and his case, and she just approached him, and this is literally just surprising how within this prison it's so easy to get to know somebody, even though you're not even held in that prison. You can literally just approach a prisoner like this, and just she was actually just allowed to freely walking around and just interacting with anybody, literally. And that was kind of strange, but at the same time, basically all the visitors, they are just actively engaged in like prisoners' lives. They literally just sitting right next to them, right next to sleeping room or whatever it's called. Literally, they just coming and just freely interacting, eating together with them. So this is like obviously not a common prison in Brazil or wherever. And she basically, Danielle's new lover, she was able even to just get some privacy with Danielle, even though this is a prison again, a lot of guards and stuff, but they were able basically to sneak around. And despite that fact that basically Danielle's new girlfriend's mother is correctional officer, her name Paulina, and her daughter Selena, basically she is visiting together with her mother, her brother. So basically Selena's brother held in this prison, and Selena's mother, she is an correctional officer of this prison, of this male unit. And she was able to basically, together with Danielle, find secluded place to basically hook up. And they were even able to hide from Selena's mother, even though she is a correctional officer. It's not so easy because she is just everywhere. And she started to suspect something strange, and she basically spotted Selena and Danielle hooking. She spotted them hooking up, and she interrupted this moment because of the initial reason why they came was just to visit Selena's brother, but now she is getting into a relationship with one of the prisoners, which is like really unnecessary, and just for her mother it's like a disaster, because it's literally just one of the worst prisoners within this prison. But for Selena, it's like a fetish for prisoners. She is just literally trolling her mother, because at this point they just, came for visiting her brother, but she's like literally getting fixated on one of the prisoners, and she sees this as a fetish. But it just quickly becomes a romance. Literally, they were able to escape Selena's mother and just sneaking around, But Danielle's brother, Christian, basically, he is kind of the opposite of that lucky person. And Danielle basically mostly getting everything and easily escaping any trouble. Not all of the trouble, but he like more considered, he more considered as, useful, I would say, person within this prison, because he has some skills that he can basically use to find a better spot at this place, because he is literally just cooperating with the director of this facility, and he is literally just found the perfect way out of the trouble with Selena's mother, his girlfriend's mother. And this solution basically came from this director of this male unit. She basically offered him, since basically his skills, mostly customizing motorcycles, and she offered him to customize this bike, which belongs to her director, her boss, because she is not the main person who is in charge of the whole complex, but she is in charge at least of this unit. But while Tremembé, it's a huge complex divided into male and female units, there is even like bigger figures who can just, control all the area of Sao Paulo. And the Tremembé basically prison located in Sao Paulo. So like she is looking basically for that opportunity to cooperate with Daniel, because she is seeking a better position, and she wants basically to control the whole area of all the prisons within Sao Paulo. And to basically get it done, she needs to kind of, do something for her boss. And this is why she asked Daniel basically to customize that bike for her boss. In return, basically, she would get that woman, Paulina, a correctional officer, of Daniel's shoulders. She literally just asked Daniel for this favor. In return, she can do something for him. And basically he asked to get this woman out of the picture, to make her not intervene in his relationship with Celine. And basically he was able to, secure his relationship with Celine. And now basically they even got this prison leave, which is huge. 7 days, a week just out of this prison together. And at the same time, basically, his brother, Christian, he basically has a girlfriend outside, a wife. He is married to this woman, and she visits him regularly and basically brings him a lot of food stuff, and she literally just comes for this man, even though he is obviously now into men, and he's kind of not even able to hide this. And while the man that is currently a love interest of Christian is just next to him, is literally just right there, he's not able to basically tell his wife that, he is now not interested in this relationship anymore and that they need to break up or something. He basically preferred to sneak around again and behind her back, basically, he was hooking up with Luca, but telling his wife false story about, their relationship, his relationship with his wife. And basically, Luca is about to get release warrant, which is just, securing his freedom immediately. And he is about to get out of this place pretty soon. And they only have like a few days left together within this prison, while they were basically on, not on prison leave, but they were basically doing some work outside of the prison. His wife basically found out that Christian basically hooks up with Luca, but she doesn't know who Luca is, basically. But she confronts Christian, basically, to tell her all the truth from the very beginning, and since she discovered basically that now basically her husband is a gay, she decided to basically dump him, to basically stop this relationship, since there is no point to come and bring him all the food she cooked, and she immediately just broke up with him. So, but that was basically kind of premature. She realized that, and later on, basically, she even hooked up with the guard of this prison, but that was, again, premature, and she was just emotionally, defeated, I would say. And basically, in this prison, there is a specific place, as in any other prison, conjugal visits. They are common for any prison. This is the place when you can basically spend some time with your wife or with your husband, if it's female unit. But within this male unit, basically, this conjugal visits, they basically used often by Christian and his wife. And the guard basically, who literally just told his wife that Christian is cheating with that inmate Luca, he was literally just, hitting on his wife, and basically he made her kind of break up with Christian, since it was his initiative to tell her about his cheating. But it wasn't really enough for Christian's wife, because she was still writing him letters, and she was about to forgive him no matter what. And she basically told him that she can literally just come back for his prison leave, and they can basically go out together again, despite the fact that she is not with him anymore, and he is currently into men. She is still, coming back, and basically they planned this prison leave to spend together those 7 days, but basically Christian, he was more happy about the fact that he is free rather than he is reunited with his wife. And the fact that he is free makes his wife to basically do some extra measures, and she basically put in this tracker on his bike to track his location, since she knows that he is not trustworthy. She basically put that tracker, and he basically went to some place and didn't even tell where exactly he was going, and she just followed him all the way, and she spotted on him basically hanging out with some woman from, dating app or something like this. And he basically used that prison leave to hook up with just a stranger instead of basically spending his time with his wife or even with Luca. He basically spoiled this moment for himself. And not only because this is like another drama and unnecessary, noise. And this is basically putting his position, putting his time in the prison at risk, because he's about to get one more years for this, basically for breaking rules of the prison leave. And he basically was detained after this scandal because police immediately just intervened and got him out of there. So at the same time, basically his brother was able to kind of spend this prison leave peacefully without any drama, but he already proposed to Celine. And basically, as far as I understand, she accepted that proposal, since she is looking, some photos about the preparation for the wedding. As far as I understand, they are about to marry each other. But his life basically so I would say his life is not a normal life, because wherever they go, basically he is immediately getting recognized by other people, and basically they were forced to leave this place because of his prehistory and his record. His record basically is the worst record you could have if you a criminal, or if you just a public person. To have this type of record means that you cannot freely just walk around, because all the news, all the people, they would basically talk about you and pointing at you like this is what really happened to Daniel. But the fact that they were able to spend 7 days, and his brother was immediately put into this isolator, but they were basically doing the same thing, but kind of in kind of different ways, because his brother was able basically to just plan his actions properly, but Christian basically, he is not really thinking before doing something. So this got him basically extra years added to his sentence, and now he's about to spend more than his brother. So this means that they are not going to leave this place at the same time, by the end of the sentence of Daniel. His brother, he will be still serving his time. And if there is season 2, it could be something like they would be looking for an opportunity to escape this prison, because 39 years or something is just too much for this TV show. Basically, they need something, and they need something for next season, and it could be potentially as an escape from this prison, or they at least they can come up with something as a way to reduce their sentences, because 39 years is almost 40 years, and now he even added extra years to this 40. So it's like almost half of his life basically is gonna be spent in this prison. But in this prison, basically, in male unit of Tremembé, there is another like side of the story, and basically it's written by this man who is literally just a former mayor who was basically convicted for corruption, and he is writing a book, and he's literally just walking around and just looking what people do, and he is trying to capture all the moments and all the like evidence of his inmates' crimes. For example, he basically spotted on this bike and the fact that Daniel basically was working for he was working on the director of this prison, and she was using basically inmates for her own benefits, which is not literally not allowed. And this basically information was put into this book, which means basically that every information that put into this book potentially can be revealed, and everybody who is involved in this type of activities, in this type of activity like using inmates, abusing power, and other things, they are about to be revealed to like the whole country, and this is what happened, because after this book basically released, every like crime, every story that prisoners told to that man who was writing this book basically directly just confirming that some of the basically cases, they can be reopened due to this extra information right now, and due to this book. Basically, a judge, she reopened all the cases, and she was able basically to detain and convict people who were telling their stories. And unintentionally, basically, everybody who was in that book, whose story got into that book, unintentionally, everybody was basically, everybody basically revealed everything about himself. So this is what happened in this TV show, in male facility in Tremembé prison. And after all that basically noise with the book, the main basically person who is in charge of this prison, she was dismissed, and she basically lost not only her position, but she lost an opportunity to become a director general, which is that position she was looking for, to be in charge of the whole area. But now she is not even in charge of this place. And at this point, basically, there is not a lot to tell you about the male prison overall, because this is just common representation of male prison, of male's facility within the Tremembé complex. And this prison is mostly just the same as any other male prison, but the fact that they basically showed all the events simultaneously from different perspectives, and that basically Suzanne's perspective was so different, and her side of the story was shown basically completely different from her ex Danielle's side of the story. His mission wasn't even to prove that he was innocent, but he was trying basically to move on from the fact that Suzanne basically used him, and after that she dumped him basically after using him and his brother in that crime basically. And Suzanne's mission was mostly to prove that she was innocent, but she managed basically to shift the blame, to put all the blame on her brother, her ex and his brother, because she was using TV, she was basically going on interview, and this way basically she was able to put all the blame on her ex, while his basically mission was mostly to survive and kind of find another love interest, which was Celine, a daughter of correctional officer. And so for season 2, there is still some, there is still some story you can basically tell, and I would like to see more of this TV show in the future, because a lot of characters, they still like not developed in a way that would show you all the necessary details to understand the essence of the character. But most of the characters, they were basically developed, and they basically ended up either outside of this prison or still serving their time in this prison, or they were put in another prison or in another place. So basically, for this TV show, there is still opportunity to expand this story to another season, but with some more episodes, because 5 episodes is just not enough for one season. And to tell more comprehensive story, you need at least 8 episodes. This is the standard as of now, the standard 8 episodes. And some TV shows basically even resorting to 20 episodes, which is too much, of course. But this TV show needs 5 more episodes. At least if they basically kept some more for season 2, it needs to be done as soon as possible, because all the interest that we have right now, it will be gone by the time that they they will it will be gone by the time they have that new season. So they need to produce it as soon as possible, because the TV show itself is not as popular as other prison shows, and it needs to be at least in the beginning of next year or something like this. Otherwise, just everybody, forgets about this TV show, and once we get another season, the noise, everything is just gone, and not so much exposure could potentially just, flop this TV show. And after it flops, there will be no season 3 or anything. Because when you take so long, basically everybody's just forgetting about you. And even like good big projects, they can be basically forgotten because of the big gaps between seasons, just ruining all the excitement, This is why 5 episodes is not enough. And for me, the story itself kind of chopped. You see the development, you see some events, you see them getting out of, you see them going to on prison leave, you see them basically reuniting and getting into another trouble. But this is literally just the whole story of the male prison. Nothing else happening, because all other characters, they are doing the same stuff. They just they getting out, they getting into another trouble, and then they getting put into even worse place than this prison. But like the whole story is just, not developing enough. Not separate storylines, but the whole story. And the whole story basically is about two brothers. If we're talking about the male unit of Tremembé, it's Christian and Daniel. And if we're talking about female unit, it's Suzanne. So since they are the main characters, they should have basically got the most screen time, but there was some character, for example, a doctor who just was, pretending like he's really sick, and he was put into another place after that, but his storyline was so unnecessary, and he was literally just keeping a lot of screen time, which wasn't really interesting to watch or anything. So I would put more of storyline for the characters that basically telling you the main basically story, which is two brothers got into this prison and they were convinced for 39 years, and the person who basically planned that crime they committed was placed in female unit right next to them. So this is the whole point of the story. This is the main rivalry between this man who was put in this prison and his ex who was put right next to him, but they are separate. They cannot interact, they cannot see each other, but they still basically blaming each other for what they did basically together. And since her part was only planning that crime, she was able to kind of get away with everything, but she is still held in that female unit. Suzanne is not getting out of the prison, but she's getting away with the fact that basically she was the initiator of the crime. So, and this basically the whole story of the season of Tremembé. And if you want to more about the story of female unit, you will get a short video, because I'm currently just editing it. It's almost done. So see you next time. Goodbye. Thank you.